The granite peaks held their secrets close, wrapped in morning mist that refused the sun's inquiry. Katherine Brennan stood at the library window of the mountain estate, her marine-trained eyes cataloging the perimeter as naturally as breathing. 5 years in this place, and the pattern never changed. Guard rotation every 6 hours, precise as a Swiss watch. Fenrir at the main gate, stone-faced and silent. 2 rovers on the tree line, 1 spotter on the ridge. Military discipline in a place that claimed no military purpose. Her husband called it private security. She called it operational security, and the distinction mattered. The leather-bound volume of Tennyson lay open on the windowsill, but Kat hadn't read a word in 20 minutes. Her reflection in the antique glass showed a woman of 32 who looked younger, auburn hair pulled back in a practical braid, green eyes that had seen things libraries couldn't cure. She wore jeans and a wool sweater that hid the Glock 19 holstered at her spine. Old habits from Fallujah. Some things a person never unlearned. Late September cold seeped through the window glass, promising the first hard freeze within days. The aspens on the lower slopes had already turned gold, a brief fire before winter's long silence. The estate itself was a contradiction. Built into the mountainside like a bunker pretending to be a manor house, all fieldstone and timber, with windows that didn't quite match civilian architecture. Too narrow. Firing ports dressed up as character. The great room where she stood could have been carved from a single piece of the mountain, 40 feet of vaulted ceilings supported by beams that had never known a sawmill. A massive hearth dominated the western wall, big enough to roast a full deer. Sometimes, when Marcus thought she wasn't watching, she'd catch him staring into those flames with eyes that held too many winters. She traced the window frame with one finger, feeling the cold seep through centuries-old glass. No internet, no cell service. Marcus claimed the mountain interfered with signals, but Kat had checked the topography. They weren't remote enough for that excuse to hold water. This was intentional isolation, the kind that came with a reason, the kind that kept secrets buried. 5 years she'd been here. 5 years since she'd walked into that VA hospital support group in Denver, seeking some kind of peace after the IED that had torn through her convoy and shredded 3 good Marines into memory. She'd gone there to talk about survivor's guilt. She'd found Marcus instead, sitting in the back row, a man who never spoke, but whose eyes understood every unspoken scream. He'd waited for her after the session, didn't offer platitudes, just asked if she'd like coffee. They'd talked until dawn in an all-night diner, 2 soldiers who'd learned that some wars never ended. He claimed to be a private security consultant, former military contractor, the kind of vague background that explained the scars and the nightmares. She'd believed him because she'd wanted to, because his hands didn't shake when he held his cup, and God, she'd needed to be around someone who wasn't broken. 3 months later, he'd brought her to this place, proposed in the garden he'd built with his own hands, roses that shouldn't survive at this altitude but did anyway. She'd said yes because love was the only territory she hadn't lost to the war. The wedding had been small. Just them and a justice of the peace in town. No family. Kat's parents were long dead, and Marcus claimed he had no one. She'd thought it romantic at the time. 2 orphans making their own family. Now she wondered what he'd been hiding. Because Marcus Thornwood was a man wrapped in lies, she'd started noticing 6 months in. Little things. The way he never bled quite right when he cut himself in the workshop. A gash that should have needed stitches, sealed by morning. The temperature of his skin, always running 10 degrees too hot. How his eyes caught moonlight wrong, reflecting it back with a golden sheen that had nothing to do with human biology. She was an intelligence analyst. Pattern recognition was what had kept her alive in theater. And the patterns here didn't add up. The guards, for instance, men like Fenrir, who moved with a predator's economy of motion, who could stand watch for 8 hours without fidgeting, whose loyalty to Marcus bordered on religious devotion. They called him Sir, with a deference that went beyond employer and employee. They looked at him the way soldiers looked at a commanding officer they'd follow into hell. She'd measured the scars on his body, mapped them in the dark while he slept, her fingers learning stories his lips refused to tell. The jagged line across his left shoulder blade, puckered and pale, had the trajectory of a saber wound. She'd seen enough historical reenactment wounds to recognize the real thing. The circular marks on his forearms, overlapping in sets of 4, matched a bite radius of 6 inches. canine spacing. But no dog she knew had a jaw that large. The silvery web across his ribs looked like shrapnel damage, but the scarring was too old. Decades old. Older than Marcus's claimed age of 38. Kat was good at math. The equations didn't balance, but she loved him. That was the complication that kept her silent. She'd chosen this willful blindness because the alternative was losing the only peace she'd found since the war. Some battles, a person chose not to fight. The sound of his approach reached her before he appeared. No footfalls. He moved like smoke, like he'd learned fieldcraft from something other than human instructors. One moment the room was empty, save for her. The next, he was there. Marcus filled doorways without trying. 6'4" of dense muscle and contained power, broad shoulders that strained against the tactical vest he wore like a second skin. Dark hair shot through with premature silver, cut military short. A face that belonged on ancient coins, all sharp angles and authority, with storm-gray eyes that could gentle when they found her or go flat as a shark's when he thought she wasn't looking. He was beautiful in the way a weapon was beautiful, functional, deadly, precisely crafted for a purpose she couldn't name. He shed the vest with practiced efficiency, the Velcro rasps familiar as morning coffee. Underneath, a black thermal shirt clung to the topography of his torso. Even through the fabric, she could see the roadmap of violence written on his skin. "Perimeter secure," he said, the words automatic, their ritual. "Any activity?" she asked, playing her part. "Negative, quiet night." He crossed to her, and despite everything, her pulse still kicked up when he got close. 5 years, and he still affected her like this. His hand came up to cup her face, calloused palm warm against her cheek. He leaned down, pressed his forehead to hers. She breathed him in. Pine and wood smoke and something else, something wild and clean that had no name. "You didn't sleep," he murmured. "Neither did you." A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. "I don't need as much as you do." There it was, another piece that didn't fit. She'd timed him. 4 hours a night, maximum, sometimes less. He should be exhausted. He never was. She reached up, fingers finding the collar of his shirt, tugging it aside to reveal the scar she'd been studying last night, the long, jagged one. Her thumb traced its path. "Tell me about this one," she said softly. His jaw tightened. She felt the muscles cord beneath her hand. "Told you, hiking accident, barbed wire fence. Barbed wire doesn't leave puncture marks at both entry and exit points. This was a blade, something curved, a saber maybe." His eyes shuddered. "Kat, you've got shrapnel scars that predate the First Gulf War. You've got bone-deep trauma that should have crippled you. And every single mark tells me you're older than you claim, Marcus. A lot older." Silence stretched between them, taut as tripwire. Finally he pulled back, looked at her with an expression that might have been regret or might have been fear. Hard to tell with him. "When will you tell me the truth?" she asked. "When I'm certain it won't destroy what we have." It was the same answer he always gave. She should have been angry. Instead, she just felt tired. "I'm not going anywhere," she told him. "Whatever you're hiding, whatever you think will scare me off, it won't. I've seen the elephant, Marcus. I've walked through hell. Your secrets don't frighten me half as much as losing you does." Something cracked in his expression. Raw emotion bled through for just a moment before he locked it down again. He pulled her close, one arm banding around her waist, the other hand cradling the back of her head. His grip was just shy of desperate. "Kat," he breathed against her hair, then quieter. "God, Kat." She held him back, this man of mysteries and military precision, and wondered what war he was still fighting. He buried his face in the curve of her neck, and she felt him inhale deeply, scenting her. It was a strange habit he had, this almost animalistic need to breathe her in like he was memorizing her on some primal level. His breath was hot against her throat, and she felt the vibration when he made a sound low in his chest, almost a growl, almost not human. She should have pulled away, should have demanded answers. Instead, she threaded her fingers into his hair and held him closer. They stood like that for a long moment, two soldiers clinging to each other in the quiet of a morning that would be their last peaceful one for a very long time. If she'd known what was coming, she might have held on tighter, might have said the things that needed saying before the world caught fire. But hindsight was a luxury reserved for survivors. Marcus finally pulled back, his hands framing her face, thumbs stroking her cheekbones with a tenderness that always surprised her coming from a man who looked like he could break steel. "I love you," he said. Simple, direct, the way he said everything. "I know." If something happens, nothing's going to happen. His smile was sad. You don't know that. I know calculated risk when I see it. We're fine. He kissed her then, slow and thorough and tasting of goodbye. She kissed him back and tried not to think about how it felt like he was memorizing her too. When he released her, he stepped back and the mask slid into place again. Commander mode. All business. I need to check the northern fence line. Fenrir reported possible activity last night. Activity? Tracks. Probably just elk, but I want to be sure. Elk, right. Because elk left tracks that made her husband's face go grim and his hand drop to the knife he wore at his belt. Want company? She offered, knowing he'd refuse. Stay here, stay warm, I'll be back by lunch. It wasn't a request. It was an order, gently delivered but unmistakable. She nodded anyway. Be careful. Always am. He left the way he'd entered, silent and sudden. One moment present, the next gone. Like a ghost. Like something that had learned to walk between worlds. Kat turned back to the window, watching his shape materialize at the tree line 100 yards out, moving with that inhuman speed and grace. Fenrir fell into step beside him, the two of them disappearing into the forest without disturbing a single branch. She picked up her Tennyson, but the words still wouldn't come into focus. Outside, the morning mist burned away, revealing a sky the color of scraped bone, high and thin and cold. The kind of sky that promised snow by nightfall, the kind of sky that belonged to a different season, a different world, the kind of sky that hung over battlefields. She'd learned to read weather in Iraq, learned which clouds meant sandstorms and which meant clear fields of fire. This sky, this wrong season sky, felt like an omen. Kat had spent 3 years in intelligence. She knew how to listen to instinct. Something was coming. The day crawled by in deceptive peace. Kat tried to read, tried to organize the library's collection of military histories and ancient texts Marcus kept on the upper shelves. The books were wrong, too. Some of them dated back centuries, first editions that should have been in museums, written in languages that predated modern printing. She'd asked him once why a security consultant needed a collection of medieval warfare treatises written in Latin. He'd smiled and said he liked history. She'd let it go, added it to the list of things that didn't fit. Lunch came and went. No Marcus. Not unusual, but her instincts prickled anyway. She made coffee, strong and black, the way the Corps had taught her, stood at the kitchen window, watching the western approach. The guards changed shift at 1400 hours, smooth as machinery. 2 new faces she recognized. Torin, the big one with the flattened nose and the 1,000-yard stare of a combat veteran. And Ash, younger, quicker, with eyes that never stopped moving. They nodded to her through the window. Respect, not deference. She appreciated that. By 1600 hours, the light was failing. Mountain shadows stretched long across the snow, turning the world to shades of blue and gray. Still no Marcus. Kat checked her Glock. 13 rounds in the mag, 1 in the chamber. Muscle memory from another life. She told herself she was being paranoid. She told herself right up until the moment the estate's perimeter alarm went silent. It was a passive system. No klaxons, no flashing lights. Just a steady electronic pulse that ran through the house's bones. A heartbeat only she and Marcus could feel through the modified smart home integration he'd installed. She'd thought it overkill when he'd shown her. Now she understood why soldiers over-prepared. The pulse died at 1647 hours. Someone had cut the system. Kat's training kicked in before thought could catch up. She moved to the great room, putting her back to the stone wall beside the hearth where she had cover and angles on both entrances. Drew her Glock, brass check, safety off. Controlled breathing, heart rate steady. She pulled out her phone. No signal. Never had been, but she tried anyway. The quiet pressed in. No wind, no birds. The kind of silence that came before incoming fire. Through the window she caught movement. Shadows detaching from shadows. 3 figures moving with tactical precision, using cover, advancing on the main entrance. Not Fenrir's team, wrong silhouettes, wrong movement patterns. Kat's mouth went dry. She shifted position, angling for a better view. The figures wore black tactical gear, load-bearing vests, faces covered. Professional. They moved like operators, like the contractors she'd worked with in Fallujah, like the kind of people who didn't make social calls. The lead figure raised a hand. Military signals. The other 2 split off, flanking positions. Standard breach protocol. Kat counted heartbeats, ran scenarios. 3 hostiles, unknown additional support. No backup, no extraction, no comms. She was on her own. The front door was solid oak, banded with iron, built like a castle gate. It would hold for maybe 30 seconds against a shaped charge. She had 20. Kat moved. Combat crouch, weapon up, crossing to the hallway that led to Marcus's study. Heavy furniture, better cover. She grabbed the iron poker from the hearth as she passed. Backup weapon. The explosion came at 19 seconds. Not a shaped charge. Something else. Something that blew the door clean off its hinges and sent it skidding across the flagstone floor like it weighed nothing. The concussion rattled her teeth. Smoke billowed through the opening, acrid and chemical. 3 figures stormed through the breach, fast, coordinated. The lead man moved with the kind of speed that didn't track right. Too quick, almost blurred. Kat fired. Center mass, double tap, the way they'd taught her at Quantico. The rounds hit. She saw the impacts. The lead man staggered, but he didn't go down, didn't even slow much. He looked at her through the smoke, and his eyes caught the firelight wrong. Gold, burning gold. "Contact!" he barked. Not to his team, to something else. Someone listening on comms she couldn't hear. The other 2 spread out, flanking, professional, clinical. One went left toward the kitchen, one went right toward the library. The lead man came straight at her. Kat fired again. 3 rounds, controlled burst, head and chest. At least one should have been catastrophic. He batted them aside. No, not batted. Moved through them. Faster than physics should allow. He crossed 15 feet in the time it took her to process that he was moving. She swung the poker. Aim for the knee, destroy mobility. He caught it, one-handed, crushed the iron like foil and ripped it from her grip. Kat rolled right, came up in a fighter's stance, Glock tracking. But he was already inside her guard, one hand locking around her wrist, squeezing. Bone ground on bone. The gun clattered to the floor. Up close, she could see his face. Young, maybe 35, handsome in a cold way. And his eyes, those burning gold eyes, held nothing human. "Katherine Brennan," he said, and his voice had an accent she couldn't place. Old, European. "Captain, United States Marine Corps, Intelligence Specialist, Honorable Discharge, 2007. He knew her service record. "The colonel chose poorly," the man continued. "You're a contamination, a security risk. The council has issued sanction." "I don't know what you're talking about." His smile was a predator's smile, all teeth. "No, you wouldn't. He kept you blind. How thoughtful, how cruel." He started to squeeze. Her wrist bones creaked. In another second, they'd snap. Then Marcus was there. She didn't see him enter, didn't hear him. One moment she was alone with a man who was breaking her arm. The next, that man was flying backward through the air, airborne, crashing through the mahogany dining table like it was made of matchsticks. Marcus stood where the attacker had been, and he was wrong. Everything about him was wrong. His shoulders had broadened, bones reshaping under his shirt. His hands had become claws, black and curved and made for tearing. His face was still his face, but the bones beneath were shifting, jaw elongating, teeth too sharp. And his eyes. God, his eyes. Molten gold, burning like forge fire. He turned to look at her, and the sound that came from his throat was not human. It was a snarl that rattled the windows, that promised violence in a language older than words. "Kat," he managed, and even his voice was wrong, layered with harmonics that shouldn't exist. "Get behind me." She couldn't move, couldn't process what she was seeing. The other 2 attackers came running. The one from the kitchen had a knife, silver blade etched with symbols. He swung for Marcus's throat. Marcus caught the wrist, twisted. The crack of breaking bone was obscenely loud. The attacker screamed, and Marcus threw him one-handed into the stone wall. The impact left a crater. The man didn't get up. The 3rd attacker, smarter, went for Kat. She saw him coming through her shock. Training reasserted itself. She dropped, swept his legs, came up with the dropped Glock, and put 3 rounds into his center mass as he fell. He went down, stayed down. Marcus was on the first man before he could recover from the table. No technique. Pure violence. He grabbed the man's head in both clawed hands and slammed it into the floor. Once, twice, 3 times. The flagstones cracked. The man stopped moving. Marcus knelt there, breathing hard, his body still half-shifted. Not quite human, not quite animal. Something in between. Something impossible. Blood pooled around the bodies, thick, too dark. The scent of it was copper and meat and something else, something wild. Kat stood frozen, gun dangling from nerveless fingers, staring at her husband. At the monster wearing her husband's face. The great room's doors burst open again. More figures. But these ones she recognized. Fenrir, massive and grim. Torin, Ash, 3 others from the guard rotation. They took in the scene, the bodies, the blood, the destruction. And they dropped to one knee. All of them. Synchronized, military precision. "Colonel," Fenrir said, his head bowed, voice thick with shame. "Forgive us. We failed to detect the breach." "Colonel," Kat's brain tried to make sense of the word. Failed. Marcus slowly straightened. His body rippled, bones sliding back into human configuration, claws retracting, face reshaping. In 30 seconds he looked like himself again, except for the eyes. Those stayed gold for a long moment before fading back to storm gray. He turned to her. She took a step back. Pain flashed across his face, raw, unhidden. "Kat, what are you?" Her voice came out steady. "Good. Hold on to that. Hold on to control. I can explain." "What are you?" Marcus looked at Fenrir. Some silent communication passed between them. The big man rose, gestured to the others. They moved with practiced efficiency, hauling bodies toward the door. Cleanup crew. They'd done this before. When they were alone, Marcus took a careful step toward her. She raised the Glock. He stopped. "My name is Marcus Thornwood," he said quietly. "That part was true. But I'm not a security consultant. I'm a colonel in the United States military. The unit I command isn't in any official record. We operate outside normal chains of command. We have for over 200 years. "That's impossible. I was born in 1903. I'm 121 years old. I'm not human, Kat. I'm Lycan. What your folklore would call a werewolf, and I'm the alpha king of the North American packs." The words were insane, impossible, but she'd just watched him move faster than human physics allowed. Watched his body reshape itself, seen his eyes burn gold. She'd spent 5 years cataloging the evidence. She just hadn't wanted to see the pattern. "The guards," she said slowly. "All Lycan, all under my command. The scars. From battles you can't imagine, wars that predate this nation. The speed, the strength, the way you heal. Part of what I am." Kat's hand tightened on her Glock. "You lied to me. For 5 years." "Yes. No excuse, no justification, just honesty. Those men, they called me a contamination." Marcus's expression went cold. "They're from the Shadow Council, the traditionalists who believe humans are beneath us, who believe any Lycan who mates with a human has committed treason against the bloodline." "Mates." "We don't marry, Kat. We bond. It's deeper than any human ceremony. It's written into our DNA, our souls. The moment I saw you in that VA hospital, I knew. You were mine, my mate, the other half of me." She laughed. It came out bitter. "So what, you just decided to lie to me forever? Keep me as your secret human pet?" "I decided to give you a choice I was never given. I built this place, this life, where I could be with you without dragging you into the violence of my world, where you could be safe." "Safe," she gestured at the blood on the floor. "This is safe?" It was. "For 5 years I kept you separate, hidden. The council didn't know about you. I sacrificed my throne, my duties, everything to have this peace with you. And now?" Fenrir reappeared in the doorway. His expression was grim. "Colonel, we have a problem. The one you incapacitated is waking up. He's requesting parley. He says he carries a formal summons from the Shadow Council." Marcus didn't take his eyes off Kat. "What are the terms?" "Tribunal. Tomorrow at sunset, at Blackstone Citadel. Both of you are required to attend." Fenrir paused. "Sir, he says if you don't comply, they'll send a full tactical team. They'll burn this place to bedrock." Silence. Kat lowered her gun, slowly. "Who's on trial?" Marcus finally looked away from her. His jaw was tight. "Both of us. Me for treason, you for existing." "And if we run?" "They'll hunt us, forever. There's nowhere in this world I could hide you from them." She should have been terrified, should have been running. Instead, old training kicked in. Assess threats, calculate odds, plan for worst-case scenarios. "What are our options?" Marcus looked back at her, surprise flickering in his eyes. "What?" "Options, Colonel. You're military, so am I. We're compromised, we're surrounded, and we have hostiles inbound. What's our tactical situation?" Something in his face shifted. Relief, pride, love. "We go to the Citadel, we face the council, we present our case. And if they find us guilty, they'll execute you. They'll force me to watch. Then they'll strip my rank and exile me." Kat processed this, nodded. Odds of acquittal? Low, maybe 20%. The traditionalists have been gaining power. They see human lichen bonding as species contamination. Defenses? The bond itself. If I can prove to them that you're my true mate, that the bond is legitimate under the old laws, they might grant clemency. Might? It's the best option we have. Kat looked at the bodies being dragged out, at the blood on her hands, literal and otherwise, at the man she'd loved for 5 years, who'd just revealed himself as something from nightmares and legends. She should have run, but she'd served in Fallujah. She'd survived an IED that killed 3 of her friends. She'd learned that sometimes the only way out was through. How long do we have? We need to leave in 1 hour. It's a 4-hour drive to Blackstone. Then I need 30 minutes to pack tactical gear and 20 minutes to get a sit rep from you. Every detail, Marcus. No more lies. He stared at her like he'd never seen her before. You're not running. I don't abandon my own. The words hung in the air between them. Something fierce and bright lit in his eyes. Kat. 30 minutes, clock's ticking. She moved past him, heading for their bedroom. Her hands were steady. Her heart was racing, but her head was clear. This was threat assessment. This was mission planning. This was the part of her that had survived Fallujah. This was the part of her that would survive whatever was coming. Behind her, she heard Marcus give orders to Fenrir. Tactical, efficient. The voice of a commander who'd led men through centuries of war. She'd married a monster, a lie, a fairy tale. She'd also married a soldier. That part, at least, was true. Kat packed light, combat boots, cargo pants, tactical vest. She strapped the Glock to her thigh, loaded 3 spare magazines, grabbed her K-bar from the nightstand drawer, the blade Marcus thought she didn't have. She caught her reflection in the mirror. Same face, same body. But something had shifted behind her eyes. The woman looking back at her wasn't the librarian who'd hidden in this mountain sanctuary for 5 years. She was Captain Katherine Brennan, USMC, intelligence specialist, survivor. And she was about to walk into a war she didn't understand to save a man who'd lied to her, because he was still hers. And she didn't abandon her own. The drive to Blackstone Citadel was silent. Marcus drove, his eyes on the winding mountain road. Fenrir rode shotgun. Kat sat in back, watching the wilderness roll past, dark and deep and full of secrets. Tell me about the lichens, she said. Not a request. Marcus's eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. He started talking. The history spilled out like a classified briefing. Lichens were old, older than human civilization. They'd been part of human history since the beginning, hiding in plain sight, fighting in every war, serving in every army. The American Revolution had lichen units on both sides. The Civil War, both world wars, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. Soldiers who never aged, who healed from wounds that should have been fatal, who could fight with strength and speed no human could match. They'd served with honor, Marcus said, bled for countries that would never know they existed, died in battles that would never acknowledge their sacrifice. But they kept their own laws, their own hierarchy. The Shadow Council governed the North American packs, 5 elders, each representing a major territory. They enforced the old ways, the old rules. Rule 1. Lichens did not mate with humans. The bloodline had to stay pure. Marcus had broken that rule when he'd bonded with Kat. Why, she asked. Why risk everything for me? He was quiet for a long moment. Because I'd spent 120 years fighting, bleeding, watching everyone I loved grow old and die. I was tired, Kat. Tired of the wars, the politics, the endless duty. And then I saw you in that support group, trying so hard to hold yourself together, and I saw peace. For the first time in my life, I saw a future that wasn't about the next battle. So you built me a cage. I built us a sanctuary. Same thing. He flinched, but he didn't argue. They drove on into the gathering dark. Blackstone Citadel appeared as they crested a ridge. Kat's breath caught. It wasn't a building. It was a fortress carved into the mountain itself, all black stone and sharp angles, massive and ancient and utterly inhuman in its scale. Guard towers rose like teeth against the stars, walls thick as bunkers, and everywhere, movement, figures that moved too fast, eyes that caught the moonlight and threw it back gold. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Welcome to my world, Marcus said quietly. They pulled through gates that looked like they could stop a tank. The courtyard beyond was vast, lit by torches that cast everything in shades of amber and shadow. Lichens lined the walls, standing silent, watching her. Kat felt the weight of their stares, felt their contempt like a physical thing. Marcus parked, came around to open her door, offered his hand. She took it, let him help her out, stood beside him, chin up, shoulders back, military bearing. Let them look, let them judge. She'd walked through worse than their contempt. An old woman detached herself from the crowd, white hair in braids, face like cracked leather, eyes sharp as broken glass. She leaned on a staff of twisted wood and radiated authority that made even Marcus straighten. The woman's gaze raked over Kat, clinical, assessing, finding her wanting. "So," the woman said, her voice like stones grinding, "this is the human contamination, the security risk, the thing for which you abandoned your throne, Colonel Thornwood." Marcus's hand tightened on Kat's, warning or support. "Elder Sylvain," he said, respectful but not subservient. "This is Katherine Brennan, my wife, my mate." "Your mistake," Sylvain corrected. She stepped closer, sniffing the air, her lip curled. "She smells of gunpowder and weakness. Pathetic." Kat met the old woman's eyes, didn't blink. "I smell of cordite and controlled breathing, Elder. There's a difference." Silence rippled through the courtyard. Sylvain's eyes narrowed. "You dare speak to me, human?" "I dare speak to anyone who speaks to me first. It's called conversation. Maybe it's different in your culture." Marcus made a sound like he was choking. Sylvain stared at Kat for a long moment. Then, shockingly, she smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Bold, foolish, but bold. She turned to Marcus. "The council convenes at sunset tomorrow. Until then, she is confined to quarters, under guard, for her own protection." "Understood." Sylvain turned to go, stopped, looked back over her shoulder. "For what it's worth, Colonel, I hope you haven't doomed us all for a moment's weakness." Her gaze shifted to Kat. "And I hope you're worth the price he'll pay when this ends badly." She walked away, and the crowd parted before her like water. Marcus led Kat through corridors of black stone, upstairs carved directly into the mountain. Fenrir and 2 other guards followed at a discreet distance. Protection, or prison escort, hard to tell. They reached a heavy door. Marcus pushed it open. The room beyond was massive, Spartan. A bed big enough for 3 people. A hearth. A single window that looked out over a drop that made Kat's stomach clench. Marcus gestured the guards away. They bowed and left. Alone, he turned to her. "I'm sorry," he said. "For what? Lying? Putting me in danger? Or getting caught?" "All of it." Kat crossed to the window, looked out at the darkness. Somewhere out there was the life she'd known, the quiet library, the safe house, the illusion of peace. It felt like another lifetime. "Tell me about the trial," she said. Marcus moved to stand beside her, not touching, giving her space. "The council will present evidence of our bond. They'll argue its contamination, that it weakens the bloodline, that it sets a dangerous precedent. They'll call for your execution and my exile." "And our defense?" "The old laws. There are precedents for human mates, from centuries ago. If I can prove our bond is legitimate, that it follows the ancient protocols, they might grant clemency." "Might. It's politics, Kat. There are factions. Traditionalists like Elder Cassius Ravenclaw, who want to purge any human influence. Progressives like Elder Lyora Windcaller, who think we need to evolve. The swing vote is usually Elder Nadira Stoneheart. She's a pragmatist. She'll vote for whatever she thinks benefits the species. So we need to convince her that I'm an asset, not a threat." "Yes." Kat turned to face him. "Then we need leverage. Information. I need to know everything about Lycan law, about the council members, about any loopholes or precedents we can exploit." Marcus stared at her. "You're strategizing." "I'm an intelligence analyst, Marcus. This is what I do. I gather information, I find patterns, I exploit weaknesses." She stepped closer. "You want to save me? Then stop treating me like I'm breakable and start treating me like a soldier." Something fierce and proud lit in his eyes. "Yes, ma'am." They spent the next 4 hours going over everything. Marcus pulled out books, scrolls, documents that looked older than the nation itself. Kat absorbed it all, taking mental notes, building a tactical picture. Lycan law was complex, Byzantine, but there were precedents, loopholes, ways to navigate the system if you were smart enough, and Kat was very smart. Somewhere around midnight, Marcus called for food. It came. They ate, kept working. Somewhere around 3 a.m., Kat's eyes started to blur. Marcus gently took the book from her hands. "Sleep. You need to be sharp tomorrow." "So do you." "I don't need as much." "Right. Werewolf," she kept forgetting. He guided her to the bed. Massive thing, covered in furs that were probably some kind of status symbol. She was too tired to care. She lay down. Marcus started to pull away. She caught his hand. "Stay." "Kat, I'm still angry at you. I'm still processing all of this, but I'm not ready to be alone yet." He hesitated, then nodded, lay down beside her, careful not to touch. She rolled toward him anyway, rested her head on his shoulder, breathed in his scent, pine and smoke and something wild. "I meant what I said earlier," she murmured. "I don't abandon my own." His arm came around her, careful, reverent. "I know." She closed her eyes, felt sleep dragging her under. Her last conscious thought was that tomorrow she'd walk into a room full of people who wanted her dead. And she'd do it the way she did everything, with her head up and her weapon ready. Let them try. She was Katherine Brennan, Captain, United States Marine Corps, and she didn't lose. Dawn came to Blackstone Citadel with all the warmth of a rifle barrel. Kat woke to gray light bleeding through the window, her body already cataloging threats before her mind fully engaged. Old habits from Fallujah. The room was cold, stone walls leaching heat like they'd been doing it for centuries. Probably had been. Marcus was gone. The furs on his side of the bed were cool to the touch. He'd left hours ago. She sat up, every muscle protesting. The tactical vest she'd slept in had left marks across her ribs. Small price. She'd learned in Iraq never to be caught without her gear. A knock at the door. 3 sharp raps, military precision. "Come," she called. Fenrir entered, carrying a tray. The big man moved with the economy of someone who'd spent decades in uniform. His face was a road map of violence, nose broken more than once, scar tissue around his eyes. But his hands were steady as he set the tray on the table. "Captain Brennan," he said, formal, respectful. "The colonel asked me to bring breakfast and to provide whatever briefing materials you require." Kat stood, crossed to the table. Smoked meat, hard cheese, dark bread that looked like it could stop a bullet. Soldier food. She approved. "Where's Marcus?" "Meeting with the progressive faction, trying to secure votes before the tribunal." Fenrir paused. "He wanted to stay. I told him you'd be more effective if he let you prepare alone." "Smart." Kat nodded. "You served with him. How long?" "Vietnam. I was just a pup then. 19 years old, first tour. Marcus was my platoon leader, Lieutenant Thornwood back then. He pulled me out of a kill zone at Khe Sanh." Fenrir's eyes went distant. "Took 3 rounds meant for me. Walked it off by morning. That's when I knew what he was. What I could be. He turned you. He saved me. Gave me purpose when the war took everything else." Fenrir met her eyes. "I've served under a lot of commanders in 56 years, Captain. Human and Lycan both. Marcus Thornwood is the best of them. He doesn't give orders he wouldn't follow himself. Doesn't ask for sacrifice he wouldn't make. And now he's sacrificing his throne for me." "No, ma'am. He already sacrificed it, 5 years ago, when he walked away from his duties to build you a life where you could be safe. This," Fenrir gestured at the room, the citadel beyond, "this is just the bill coming due." Kat absorbed that, sat down, started eating. The food was plain but good. Fuel. She'd need it. "Tell me about the council. Quick brief. Main players only." Fenrir pulled up a chair. "Elder Cassius Ravenclaw is your primary threat. Hardline traditionalist, Korean War vet. He'll vote for your execution without hesitation. Elder Nadira Stoneheart is the swing vote. Gulf War intelligence background, pragmatic. Convince her you're an asset, you win. Elder Harold Ironfist values earned honor above all else. World War II, Normandy. Prove your courage, he's yours. Elder Lyora Windcaller is progressive, Afghanistan veteran. She'll vote clemency. Elder Sylvain Ashford is the seer, spiritual advisor, unpredictable. Clean, efficient, tactical brief." Kat filed it away. "Trial format? Noon convening. Evidence presented, debate, then vote. 3 votes to convict means execution. 3 for clemency means you're free. Tie means trial by combat." "Can I choose myself as champion?" Fenrir's eyebrows rose. "Technically, yes, but no human has survived combat against a Lycan warrior. Has one tried?" "Not in recorded history." Kat smiled. "Then I guess we're about to make history." They spent the next 2 hours going over Lycan law, precedents, political alliances. Kat absorbed it like she'd done with insurgent networks in Fallujah. Find the pattern, exploit the weakness. Around mid-morning, Marcus returned. He looked tired, but his eyes lit when he saw her. Fenrir took his cue and left. Alone, Marcus crossed to her, stopped just short of touching. "How did it go?" she asked. "Leora will vote for us. Harold is undecided. Nadira wants to meet with you privately before the trial. And Cassius? Wants me stripped of rank and you executed publicly as an example. He's not subtle about it. Kat nodded. Expected. What about Sylvain? Marcus's expression darkened. She's the wild card. She won't tell me which way she's leaning. Says the old magic will guide her vote. When do I meet with Nadira? 1 hour. Good, I work better in one-on-ones anyway. Marcus finally closed the distance, cupped her face in his hands. You don't have to do this. I could get you out. Fenrir and I could create a diversion. No, we finish this together. He pulled her close, buried his face in her hair. I love you. I know. Now let's go win this thing. Nadira's chambers were sparse and functional. Maps on the walls, trade routes, economic data. The elder herself looked more military officer than mystic, wearing tactical pants and a fitted jacket. Captain Brennan, she said. Neutral, professional. Thank you for coming. I'd like to speak with you privately. Marcus left. Nadira gestured Kat to sit. You were intelligence, Nadira said, not a question. Marine Corps, 3 years in Fallujah. Then read me, Captain. Tell me what you see. Kat studied her. You're a trader. You've built economic relationships with human suppliers. You see value in cooperation. But you're pragmatic. You'll sacrifice ideals for results. You're assessing whether I'm a useful asset or a dangerous precedent. Nadira smiled slightly. And what am I thinking now? You're thinking I'm smarter than expected. But intelligence isn't enough. You need to know if I can hold my own in a world that sees me as prey. Excellent. Tell me why I should vote to keep you alive. Kat leaned forward. Because your species is at a crossroads. Technology makes hiding harder every year. Satellite surveillance, facial recognition, genetic testing. Sooner or later, humans will discover you exist. When that happens, you need someone who can negotiate, someone who speaks both languages. I can be that bridge. Nadira was quiet, considering. You're proposing to be an ambassador. I'm proposing to be useful. I have intelligence training. I understand both cultures. Let me help you build those bridges before you need them in a crisis. After a long moment, Nadira nodded. You make a compelling argument. I'll consider it carefully. Not a commitment, but it was progress. Back in their quarters, Kat found Marcus waiting. She's thinking about it. We've got a chance. Kat, there's something else. If this goes to trial by combat, I need you to know I can handle myself. Against a lichen? Kat, the strength differential is significant, I know. So I'll need to train. Is there a facility here? Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, then nodded. I'll take you. The training facility was a cavern filled with lichens working out in various forms. They stopped when Marcus entered, respect in their eyes. As you were, Marcus said. He led Kat to an empty mat. What do you want to work on? Combat scenarios. If this goes to trial by combat, I need to be ready. Fenrir, Marcus called. You're up. The big man appeared. Captain wants to spar. Don't hold back. Yes, ma'am. They squared off. Fenrir moved like lightning inside her guard in an instant, hand reaching for her throat. Kat dropped, swept his legs. He didn't budge. She'd hit concrete. His hand closed around her wrist, lifted her one-handed. Problem 1, he said calmly. You're fighting me like I'm human. I'm not. Standard techniques don't work. He set her down. Again. They went 10 rounds. Kat learned fast. She couldn't overpower him, but she could be faster, use his momentum, target weak points. By the end, she was drenched in sweat and her muscles screamed, but she'd managed to avoid his strikes 3 times out of 10. You're quick, Fenrir said, and you adapt, but in a real fight against a full-shifted lichen, you'd have maybe 30 seconds. Then I'll make those 30 seconds count. Marcus brought her water. Feel better? I feel prepared. They returned to their quarters. Kat showered, washing away sweat and fear. When she emerged, Marcus had laid out a formal uniform for her. Deep green, almost black, with subtle lichen embroidery. If we're facing the Council, we face them as what we are. You're a captain in the United States Marine Corps. Wear your rank with pride. Kat dressed slowly. The uniform fit perfectly. When she looked in the mirror, she saw a soldier, a leader, someone who belonged. Marcus stood behind her in his own dress uniform, colonel's insignia gleaming. Ready? He asked. As I'll ever be. The council chambers was circular, carved from volcanic rock. 5 stone chairs arranged in a semicircle. The 5 elders were already seated. Marcus and Kat walked to the center, standing in a shaft of dying sunlight. Cassius rose. Colonel Marcus Thornwood, you stand accused of treason against the Shadow Council, of abandoning your duties as Alpha King, of mating with an unblooded human in violation of the Preservation Act. How do you plead? Marcus's voice was steady. I acknowledge the facts as stated, but I dispute that they constitute treason. I acted within my rights under the old laws." "The old laws are dead," Cassius spat. "Our bloodlines are thinning. We cannot afford contamination." "Our bloodline's thin because we've become stagnant," Leora countered. "The old laws served their purpose. Clinging to them now is suicide." "Order," Harold rumbled. "Elder Sylvain, does precedent exist for human mates?" Sylvain stood slowly. "Precedent exists. The old texts speak of human lunas. Before the Preservation Act, such bonds were rare but not forbidden. However, those bonds were forged under specific circumstances, sacred rituals, tests to prove the human's worth." "This human has undergone no such tests," Cassius said triumphantly. "Then let her be tested now," Leora said. "If she can prove her worth, her bond should be recognized." "What test would suffice?" Nadira asked. Sylvain turned her ancient eyes on Kat. "There is one test, the trial of hearts. It has not been invoked in over a century, but it is still law." Kat felt Marcus go rigid beside her. "No," he said, "absolutely not." "What's the trial of hearts?" Kat asked. Sylvain's gaze never left her face. "It tests the bond between mates by forcing it to endure the raw, untamed spirit of the shift. The alpha must shift into his beast form, fully feral, consumed by rage. His mate must calm that rage. If she succeeds, the bond is proven. If she fails, she dies." "I won't risk her life on some archaic ritual," Marcus said. "It's not your choice, Colonel," Cassius said. "The Council can invoke the trial by majority vote. All in favor?" Cassius raised his hand. Harold raised his slowly. "If the captain consents." Kat's mind raced. This was the pivot point. "I consent," she said clearly. Marcus turned to her. "Kat, no." She took his face in her hands. "I don't run from fights. You know that." "All in favor," Cassius repeated. Cassius, Harold, and after a pause, Nadira. "The trial is set," Cassius declared. "Moonrise, 1 hour from now." They were led to the arena. A cavern opened to the sky through a circular aperture. The full autumn moon was rising, huge and bright. The pack gathered on tiered benches, hundreds of them, come to watch. Kat stepped into the circle of silver inlay on the obsidian floor. The moment her boots touched it, she felt a deep hum vibrating through her bones. Sylvain appeared with a ceremonial knife. "The trial requires blood, to bind you to the ritual." She cut Marcus's chest, blood welled dark in the moonlight. Then she cut Kat's palm. Searing cold raced up her arm, and for a moment black veins spread under her skin before fading. "Your blood is bound to his," Sylvain intoned. "His pain is your pain. His rage is your rage. Prove yourself worthy or die trying." The silver lines began to glow white-hot, and Marcus began to change. His bones cracked like gunfire. Muscles tore and reformed. Black fur erupted from his skin. His face elongated into a muzzle, fangs erupting from his gums. He grew until he stood 8 feet tall, 400 pounds of muscle and fur and teeth. The wolf, the beast. His eyes burned gold, but there was nothing of Marcus in them, only feral hunger. He threw back his head and howled. The sound shook the mountain. Then he turned those burning eyes on Kat, and charged. Kat's training screamed to run, but she'd studied. The trial wasn't about fighting. It was about trust. She stood her ground, opened her arms. The beast slammed into her, driving the air from her lungs. She went down, 400 pounds of werewolf standing over her, jaws open. Then pain exploded across her chest, the blood bond. She was feeling his wound, his agony, and with the pain came his rage, bleeding through the connection. "Marcus," she whispered. The beast snarled, lowered his head, jaws closing in. "I know you're in there," she said steadily. Come back to me." The beast hesitated. Confusion flickered in those gold eyes. Kat raised her bleeding hand, placed it against his massive chest, right over his heart. "I'm not afraid of you, you're mine, and I'm yours." The beast whined, backed away, began to pace, shaking his head. Then the ritual pulsed again, another wave of pain. The beast roared, lost in fury. He charged. This time Kat couldn't dodge. His jaws closed around her shoulder, not biting yet, just holding. The pressure was immense, her collarbone ground, vision graying. This was it. Kat stopped fighting, went limp, submitted, and whispered, "I love you." The beast froze. She felt it through the bond, the rage cracking, love bleeding through. The jaws released. The beast stepped back and began to change. Within seconds, Marcus knelt before her, human again, naked and shaking. "Kat," he choked. "God, I almost—" She threw her arms around him. "I'm okay, we did it." The arena erupted in sound, recognition, respect. Sylvain stepped into the circle. "The trial is complete. The human has survived. The bond is legitimate." She turned to the pack. Katherine Brennan is recognized as Luna. You will show her respect. One by one, the Lycans dropped to one knee. Hundreds of them, bowing to a human. Marcus helped Kat to her feet, wrapped a cloak around himself, pulled her close. "You're insane," he murmured. "I know." Back in their quarters, Marcus tended her shoulder. The bite hadn't broken skin, but she'd have bruises. "I felt you," he said quietly. "In the rage. I felt you calling me back. No one's ever done that before. The bond is strong. Stronger than I knew." He kissed her shoulder. "Thank you for trusting me." "For not running." He smiled, but it faded. "The trial proved our bond, but the council still has to vote tomorrow. They'll decide if we can stay or if I'm exiled. We won this round, we'll win the next." Marcus pulled her down beside him, held her close. Outside, the full moon hung bright, but as Kat drifted toward sleep, she caught Sylvain's face in her memory. The old seer hadn't been celebrating after the trial. Her expression had been dread, like she'd just watched a prophecy unfold that no one else could see yet. Kat filed it away, a problem for tomorrow. For now, they'd survived, and tomorrow they'd face whatever came next, together. Sleep should have come easy after the trial, but Kat's mind wouldn't quiet. She lay in the massive bed, Marcus's arm draped over her waist, staring at the ceiling while her analyst brain churned through scenarios. They'd won the trial, proven the bond. But Sylvain's face kept returning to her, that look of dread, like the old woman had seen something terrible. Marcus stirred beside her, always knowing when she couldn't sleep. "Talk to me," he murmured. "Thinking about tomorrow, the final vote. We won tonight. The pack witnessed. Even Cassius can't argue against that. Cassius isn't the one I'm worried about." Marcus propped himself up. "Sylvain." She looked terrified tonight, like she'd seen something that shouldn't be possible. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Sylvain lost someone, 80 years ago, during World War II. Her son Nathaniel bonded with a human woman named Evelyn. The council invoked an old ritual, told Evelyn that if she sacrificed herself willingly, it would seal an ancient evil threatening the packs, that her death would save thousands. Kat felt ice crawl down her spine. What happened? Evelyn believed them. She went to the altar. They cut out her heart. And the thing they were trying to seal? It didn't work. The ritual was based on a mistranslation. Her death didn't save anyone. Nathaniel died 6 months later from grief. Sylvain has blamed humans ever since. So when she sees me, she sees the woman who got her son killed. Or she sees a second chance to get it right. That thought was worse. You think she'd try the ritual again, using me? I think she's desperate enough to believe anything that promises to fix her mistake. Kat sat up. "We need to be ready." They talked until dawn, running scenarios, building contingencies. By the time light bled through the window, Kat had a plan. Fenrir arrived with breakfast and news. "Council convenes at noon for final vote," he reported. "Elder Sylvain has requested private audience with you first, Captain. 1 hour, in her chambers." Marcus was on his feet instantly. "Absolutely not." "She specifically requested the captain come alone," Fenrir said. "Said she has information about the old prophecies." "It's bait," Marcus said. "Maybe," Kat replied. "But if she wants something, I need to know what. Information is leverage." "Not alone. I wear a wire. You and Fenrir stay close. First sign of trouble, you come in." Marcus looked like he wanted to argue, but he was military. He understood tactical necessity. 30 minutes later, Kat stood outside Sylvain's chambers, wearing a concealed microphone. "Enter, child," came the tired voice. Sylvain's room was warm. Tapestries, books, a fire. It looked like a grandmother's study, not a warrior's quarters. The old woman sat by the fire, wrapped in shawls. She looked smaller, frailer. "Captain Brennan, thank you for coming. Please sit." Kat sat, maintaining distance. "You wanted to speak with me, Elder?" "I wanted to apologize for my prejudice, my fear. I have hated humans for so long I forgot that hatred is just grief wearing armor. Marcus told me about your son." Sylvain's eyes were wet. "Then you know I have reason to fear what you represent. But last night, watching you calm the beast, I saw what Evelyn could have been, should have been." Kat leaned forward. "Tell me about the ritual, the one they used on her." "Why?" "Because I need to know if someone's planning to use it on me." Sylvain's expression shifted. "You think I brought you here to—" She shook her head. "No, child. I brought you here to warn you." She pulled down an ancient book, laid it open. "This is the Book of Bindings, the original prophecies about the Luna, written in Old Lycan. For centuries, we've been translating it wrong." She pointed to a symbol. "We translated this as sacrifice. The unblooded Luna must sacrifice herself to seal the devourer. That's what we told Evelyn." "But?" But the symbol means transformation, not sacrifice. Transformation. The Luna doesn't seal the devourer by dying. She seals it by changing, by becoming something new, a bridge between human and lichen. Kat's pulse quickened. You're saying the ritual was wrong. Evelyn didn't need to die. She needed to transform, to become the first hybrid, but we killed her before it could complete. And without her, the seal weakened. The devourer has been slowly breaking free ever since. How slowly? Sylvain's face was grim. It took 80 years. But tonight is the centennial blood moon, a total lunar eclipse visible only during the autumn equinox. The same celestial event present when we killed Evelyn. The seal will break completely at moonrise unless the true ritual is completed. Unless a Luna transforms instead of dies. Yes, you have the bond mark. It's already changing you at the cellular level. Did you not feel it during the trial? The strength that wasn't yours? Kat had felt it. She'd thought it was adrenaline. The mark is preparing you, Sylvain continued. By moonrise tonight, your body will be ready. The transformation will take instead of kill, but it has to be willing. You have to choose it. And if I don't? Then Cassius will kill you anyway. He knows about the blood moon. He believes the old translation. He's planning to take you to the high altar tonight and perform the ritual the way we did it 80 years ago. He thinks your death will seal the devourer. He's planning to murder me. He's planning to save the Pax. In his mind, it's necessary sacrifice. Sylvain leaned forward. I told him I needed time to consult the old magic. He's waiting for my answer. But I cannot watch another woman die the way Evelyn did. So what's your play? I tell Cassius I support him. I go with him to the high altar, and when he tries to perform the ritual, I reveal the truth, force him to do it correctly, the transformation instead of the execution. Kat studied the old woman, looking for deception, but all she saw was guilt and desperate hope. There's one problem. I'm human. You can't just transform a human into a lichen. Under normal circumstances, no. But you have the mark. It's already begun changing you. The blood moon will complete what the bond started, but it has to be willing. And if the transformation fails? Sylvain's expression was bleak. Then at least you'll die trying to save millions instead of dying for nothing, as Evelyn did. Kat looked at the ancient book, at the mistranslation that had killed a woman 80 years ago. She thought about the Marines she'd served with in Fallujah, the ones who'd made the ultimate sacrifice. If I do this, I need guarantees. I need Marcus safe, and I need you to swear on your son's memory that you're telling the truth. Sylvain stood, placed her hand over her heart. I swear on Nathaniel's soul, on Evelyn's memory, this is the truth. Kat nodded. Then I'll do it. But we do it my way. I want every detail of this ritual. They spent the next hour going over everything. By the time Kat left, she had a complete tactical picture. She also had a plan Cassius would never see coming. Marcus was waiting in the corridor, Fenrir beside him. Well? Marcus demanded. Kat chose her words carefully. The mic was still transmitting. She apologized, explained about her son. She's voting for clemency at the council meeting. Not a complete lie. Marcus studied her face. That's it? She wanted to make peace. I let her. Kat touched his arm. Come on. Council convenes in 30 minutes. The council chamber felt different in daylight, harsher. All 5 elders were present. Marcus and Kat took their places in the center shaft of sunlight. Harold rose. We are gathered for final vote. The trial has been completed, the bond proven. We will hear final arguments, then vote. Cassius stood. The trial proved their bond is strong. I don't dispute that, but strength alone doesn't make something right. Our bloodlines are thinning. We cannot afford dilution with human weakness. I vote for exile. The colonel may keep his human, but he must renounce his throne and leave our territories forever. Nadira stood. I have considered Captain Brennan's arguments. She presents compelling strategic advantages. A human Luna could facilitate trade, negotiate treaties, bridge our worlds. I vote for clemency with conditions. 1 year as Luna, subject to council oversight. Harold stood. I have fought in more wars than most of you have lived through. Last night, I saw a human woman stand against a feral alpha without flinching. That is honor. That is strength. I vote for full clemency. Leora stood quickly. I vote for clemency. Full recognition. The world is changing. We must change with it or die. 3 for clemency, 1 for exile, 1 vote left. Sylvain rose slowly. I have lived long enough to make many mistakes. I have let fear guide me when wisdom should have ruled. Last night I saw what I should have seen 80 years ago. A human strong enough to stand as our Luna. I vote for clemency. 4-1. They'd won. Harold banged his gavel. Captain Katherine Brennan is recognized as Luna. The bond is legitimate. This council is adjourned. The chamber erupted in low, approving rumbles. Marcus pulled Kat close, kissed her hard. We did it. Yeah, Kat said, not mentioning that the real test was still coming. But as she scanned the room, she saw Cassius's face, twisted with rage, and she knew Sylvain had been right. This wasn't over. The celebration feast lasted through the afternoon. For the first time, Kat felt like she might belong. Lycans approached her, asked about the Marines, about Fallujah, about the trial. She told them stories. They told her theirs. Wars fought in shadows, centuries of service. She understood them, soldiers just like her. As sunset approached, Kat felt the first pull. A tug in her chest. The mark on her wrist grew warm. It was starting. She caught Sylvain's eye across the hall. The old woman nodded slightly. Time to move. Kat found Marcus in conversation with Harold. I need some air. Too many people. Marcus started to stand. I'll come. I need a few minutes alone. Fenrir can shadow me if you're worried. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. 20 minutes. Deal. She kissed him, putting everything she couldn't say into it, then left before he could see her face. Sylvain intercepted her in the corridor. He's waiting at the high altar, 3 loyalists with him. They think they're performing a sanctioned ritual. How do we get there without Marcus noticing? Old tunnels, this way. They moved quickly through ancient passages. The pull in Kat's chest intensified. The mark burned bright enough to see through her sleeve. How much time? Kat asked. Moonrise in 30 minutes. The transformation has to start before the blood moon reaches apex. They emerged onto a high plateau, wind vicious, carrying snow. In the center, an obsidian monolith rose like a black tooth, the high altar. Cassius stood before it with 3 guards. He turned as they approached. Elder Sylvain, you've brought her. As promised, Sylvain said. The human Luna, ready for the ritual. Kat stepped forward, letting Cassius see controlled fear. Captain Brennan, Cassius said, almost gently, I take no pleasure in this, but the survival of our species demands sacrifice. Funny, Kat said. That's what they told the last woman you murdered up here. Cassius's expression hardened. Evelyn's death was necessary, as is yours. Except it wasn't, and mine isn't either. She nodded to Sylvain. The old woman moved fast, pulled out the ancient book, threw it open on the altar. The ritual is wrong, Cassius. Look at the original text. The translation is corrupted. The Luna doesn't need to die. She needs to transform. Cassius stared at this book, face going pale. No, that's not possible. We followed the prophecy. You followed a mistranslation, and Evelyn died for nothing. But we can make it right. Tonight. The true ritual requires her to become one of us. A human can't survive the change. A normal human can't, but she has the bond mark. She's already changing. Cassius looked at Kat, war in his eyes, 80 years of certainty crashing against new evidence. If you're wrong, if this kills her and the devourer breaks free, millions die. He drew a silver knife, long and curved. I cannot gamble with our survival based on an old woman's reinterpretation. His guards moved to restrain Kat. She didn't fight. She'd planned for this. Marcus, she shouted, now! Nothing happened. Cassius smiled grimly. Your mate cannot hear you. We are too far. Even if he could, he would never arrive in time. The guards forced her to her knees. Cassius raised the knife, and the moon broke the horizon. Blood red, total eclipse. The mark on Kat's wrist exploded with light. Gold. Burning gold. Power surged through her. Not Marcus's power, her own. Kat moved. Faster than human. She tore free from the guards, spun, drove her elbow into the first one's throat. The second lunged. She caught his wrist, used his momentum, threw him into the third. Cassius stared. How? The transformation already started. The moment I survived the trial. I'm already half Lycan. I just needed the blood moon to complete it. The power kept building. Her vision sharpened. She could smell everything, and underneath something vast and hungry. The devourer, waking. The ritual, Sylvain shouted. You have to complete it. Place your hands on the altar. Accept the transformation willingly. Kat moved to the altar. The obsidian was warm, alive with old magic. I, Katherine Brennan, accept this transformation. I choose to become the bridge between worlds. I choose to be Luna. The altar erupted with light, gold and silver swirling together. Pain, worse than anything in Fallujah. Her bones breaking, reforming, muscles tearing, rebuilding, DNA rewriting itself. She screamed, and then Marcus was there. He'd found her after all. Kat! He tried to pull her away. No, Sylvain blocked him. She has to complete it. If you interrupt, she dies. Marcus looked at Kat, at the agony on her face. What's happening? She's becoming what she was always meant to be, the first hybrid. The transformation intensified. Kat felt her senses explode. Her body shifted, not into full wolf, into something between. Half lichen, half human, something new. She reached out with her mind, following threads of magic to where the devourer strained against chains. And she reinforced them, not with death, with life, with the strength of two worlds merged. The devourer screamed, but it couldn't break free. The light faded. Kat collapsed. Marcus caught her. "Kat, talk to me." She opened her eyes. Gold, burning gold, but still hers. "I'm okay." Her voice was different, layered, human and something more. She looked at her hands, still hers, but with retractable claws. She felt her teeth, sharper but not fangs. "Hybrid." "What did you do?" Marcus whispered. "What I needed to be, the bridge." The blood moon was fading back to silver. Cassius knelt in the snow. The prophecy was true. You didn't seal it by dying. You sealed it by changing. Kat looked at Sylvain. "Thanks for the warning." The old woman's eyes were wet. "Thank you for succeeding where Evelyn couldn't." Marcus pulled Kat close. "You should have told me." "You would have tried to stop me. This was my choice, Marcus." He looked at her, seeing what she'd become. "Are you still you?" "I'm still me, just more." She smiled. Fangs glinted. "Hope you don't mind." He laughed, the sound like a sob. "I love you. Human, hybrid, whatever. I love you." "I know." They stood together on the plateau, the blood moon fading above them. Kat wasn't human anymore, wasn't lichen. She was something new, the first of her kind, the last Luna. 6 months later, Kat stood in their quarters, examining her reflection. She'd mastered the shift, could go from fully human to hybrid at will. In human form, she looked almost like before, but her eyes held gold flecks, her reflexes faster, strength greater. In hybrid form, she was formidable. 7 feet, claws, fangs, enhanced senses, but still able to speak, think, plan. Marcus came up behind her. "Ready?" "As I'll ever be." Today, the first human volunteers were arriving. People who wanted what Kat had, the chance to become hybrid, to bridge both worlds. Nadira's idea. Create a core of hybrids who could move freely in both societies. Diplomats, traders, soldiers. 12 volunteers, veterans mostly, people who understood sacrifice. "Nervous?" Marcus asked. "Terrified. What if it only worked for me because of the bond mark?" "Then we adapt. That's what we do now." Kat turned in his arms. "I love you." "I know." She shifted to hybrid form, felt the power flood through her. "Come on, Colonel. We've got a new world to build." Outside, the sun was setting over the mountains. Human towns in the distance, lichen lands in the peaks. 2 worlds slowly coming together because of her. Kat stood on the battlements, looking out over the territories. She thought about Evelyn, the woman who'd died 80 years ago. Hoped she was proud. "The first Luna," Marcus said beside her. "The one who changed everything." "The last Luna," Kat corrected. "Because after me, there won't be Lunas and humans. Just people who choose to bridge both worlds." "That's better." The moon rose, silver and bright. Kat shifted back to human form, took Marcus's hand. They had work to do, a world to change, a future to build. But for now, they were just 2 soldiers who'd found peace in each other. And that was enough. The wind swept down from the granite peaks, no longer mournful. It sang of change, of evolution. The last Luna looked out over her domain and smiled. The war was over. The real work was just beginning. And she was ready.